There was once a guy who went shopping at Heshi's kosher supermarket. It was the end of the day, and Heshi himself was trying to, finish up with the last few customers at the cash register. And he's with the final customer. He packs the final bag, stuffs it to its brim, and just as the customer was about to finish paying up and leaving, the bottom of the big paper bag gave way. And the contents of this overstuffed bag fell all over the floor in Heshi's kosher market. Heshi says, "They don't make bags the way they used to." He turns to the customer. He says, "This was supposed to happen in your driveway." I hear that phrase a lot. They don't make things like they were used to. Today's teens. Here's the thing. Tonight's class is called Raising Teens in 2021. And I remember once reading a joke about someone who gave parenting classes, and she called it the 10 Commandments for Raising Kids. That was until she had kids. Then she changed it to 10 Suggestions for Raising Kids until her kids were teenagers. And then she stopped giving the class. And some of the high school girls where I work in B'Sifka actually asked me today, they're like, "Oh, you're giving a class on raising teenagers? Do you have teens yourself?" So I want to clarify. If raising teenagers means parenting teenagers, I don't have my own teens yet. But when I think of raising teenagers in 2021, I think of literally raising them, lifting them up, bringing out the best potential that we, the educators, the adults in their lives, as Miriam so beautifully described it, can bring out in these teenagers. Along the lines of what we were saying before, today's teens, a lot of people feel like almost like a panic or a shock. What's going on? What's going to be? And it's very important for us to recognize that there's nothing to be afraid of. Everything's under control. Hashem knows exactly what he's doing. And our job is to raise ourselves and raise the teens and actually believe in them. Believe in our children of all ages, but especially the teenagers, especially as they're developing, there might be some challenges that they might be facing. And it's tempting to sometimes just be like, "Oh, I can't believe it, and look what they're up, and the technology, and this and that." And I'm not even saying close your eyes and imagine this teenager that might be struggling or just might not be so into it. Imagine her in 10 years, just totally inspired and doing all the right things. I think what we're saying is today, look at the teenagers and be blown away by them. Be like, "Wow, do you know what incredible things they're doing?" And I feel so lucky to work in a high school where I literally see on a daily basis girls doing all sorts of things. And I'm like blown away. Might certain things be, happening that are not ideal? Perhaps. But if I want to raise them, I need to find that kernel of good and laser sharp focus there. It's like the story of Kaira. If you're not speaking now, if you don't mind, just please muting, because I think we heard like $100 worth of. I think we hear some noise in the background. Just mute, or maybe Miriam, could we just mute everyone besides for the speaker? So Kairach, you could, we all know Kairach was he challenged Moshe Rabbeinu. Kairach was not one of the good guys, as far as we know, according to the story and according to Pshat. He challenged Moshe Rabbeinu, "How dare Aaron be the Kohen Gadol?" And yet we have an entire parsha named after Kairach. Why? Why are we naming a parsha after Kairach if he didn't do the right thing? And the Rebbe explains in the Sikha that the reason is because we want to focus on the good part of Kairach. Right then, even while he was rebelling against the Moshe Rabbeinu of the generation, you want to hear something good about it? Really deep down, Kairach had a desire for a higher level of spirituality. He didn't want to be just like a regular Yid. He wanted to be the Kohen Gadol. It wasn't just about the status and the prestige, that he was jealous that Aaron was appointed. He deep down wanted more. And that was the kernel of good that happened and that was there and that needs to be revealed. And the Rebbe says, you want to influence somebody? You want to influence somebody with Torah and mitzvahs? You have to look at them right now, not just in a few years and not just what we hope them to be. What good are they already doing? What's that inner desire? How could I flesh that out? Similar to what Miriam was saying about looking at them with that positive look. And when we look at them that way, it grows and it grows and it grows. So I wanted to share a few points from Klali Chinuch V'Hadracha that apply across the board in Chinuch, but we could really adapt it to raising teens, to elevating them to their real, passionate, incredible, youthful potential. There was once an old couple that was on vacation. And they had grand plans for their vacation. They were traveling, pre-corona. And the wife drags her husband to the dentist. And they're at the dentist together. And the dentist says, how can I help you? And the wife, let's call her Rivka, says, dentist, please do me a favor. I just want a tooth extracted and just do it as soon as you can. I don't even care. Don't even numb the tooth. Just extract the tooth. Honestly, I have plans. I really want to be traveling and can you just do whatever you can to take the tooth out? So the dentist says to Rivka, sure. You're a brave woman. Which tooth is it that you want me to extract? And she looks at her husband and she says, Chaim, show him which tooth it is that you want the dentist to take out. It's very easy to minimize someone else's pain. It's very easy for us to be to think with our adult mind and be like, literally? Right? Like a 3-year-old is crying because their ice cream fell on the floor. It's very hard to remind ourselves that for a 3-year-old, actually, he's devastated because his ice cream fell on the floor. And for teenagers, the things that they're struggling with and the pain that they're going through, whether it's peer pressure, the struggle to be real and to establish their identity and their connection to their friends and to Hashem, it's really, really painful for them. At the same time that we can validate their pain, we can also help them recognize that every moment of pain is an opportunity for satisfaction, for joy. And that's one of the klalim that the Frierdiker Rebbe establishes in Klali Chinuch V'Hadracha is that actually our source of pain, our flaws, the things that get us so frustrated, right? Whether I struggle with time management or anger management or happiness management, whatever it is that I'm struggling with, it brings me pain. I get down on myself, how I could be struggling with something like that. Our teens can get down on themselves, how they could be struggling with that. And the Frierdiker Rebbe says, we have to be teaching them. And we have to know for ourselves, the students are the most challenging, the teens themselves with their biggest challenge are actually opportunities for the biggest joy. And the Frierdiker Rebbe says, you cannot compare the satisfaction that a farmer would get from farming a field that was, that yields crop, but that was a field that was rich in nutrients and fertile and then a piece of land that he really worked in order to get that crop. So the satisfaction I get from the one time that I controlled my impulse is incomparable. I could appreciate it. And sometimes I walk around people, thinking if people only knew how much it took for me to come on time, get my act together, not act out on something. So it's learning how to access our joy and feel so good those days that we won the battle, and to help our teams recognize and also feel joy every time they overcome that battle. And it's opening the mind to the possibility that whatever their source of struggle is potential for the greatest joy. Because whatever we have that's hard for us, and we all have things that are hard for us, adults, teenagers, children, we all have challenges. Embedded in that challenge is an opportunity for that inner satisfaction, for that feeling of victory, that feeling of gratitude. You have no idea how big of a deal it is that I wanted to say something and I didn't. That I could have argued something, that I could have done something that I didn't. And Hashem, like, knows us. He created us, he created our gifts, and he created our challenges custom made to us. And so, in order to raise our teams and raise ourselves, it's important for us to look at our challenges as an opportunity to bring happiness to ourselves and happiness to Hashem. And to really, really appreciate that if 99 times I might have slipped up and said gossip or acted out on something I didn't want to do, that one time that I didn't is more precious than gold. And it's not enough to believe that it could be an opportunity for happiness. We have to believe that they can do it. And it doesn't matter if the challenges are, inborn or habits, negative habits they picked up along the way, whether they always had this challenge with messiness or interpersonal relationships or davening, regardless of whether it's an inborn trait or something like that, what's important is that we believe that Hashem gave them the tools to overcome it. And we know that before a child is born, he's made to swear that he will be righteous. And the word for swearing, right, mashbiyin, could also mean from the lashon of satiated. Hashem satiates us with the ability to overcome our challenges. And we might have to get creative about it. So if somebody tends to struggle with depressive thoughts or has a hard time with certain challenging, what strengths can they use to compensate, to help them overcome it? Somebody might tend to be more struggle with anxious or depressive thoughts, but they might be artistic. Maybe they could draw their feelings. What strength does a person have? Are they resilient? Are they really, really focused? What strength can a person use and lean into that strength? Are they creative? Right? Can somebody, maybe they have a great memory. Some people have a strength in IQ. Some people have a strength in EQ. But we have to believe that Hashem gave them the ability to overcome their strength. And we have to help them find it. We have to bring it out. And it's interesting because, I keep swinging back and forth between raising ourselves and raising the teams and raising ourselves and raising our teams, because it really is this circular process of raising ourselves and raising our children. Because the more we model this for ourselves, the more they're able to learn from us. The more we talk about it in a real way, the more they're like, oh, I could do that. And they're looking to us to see, any class that was considered a hard class knows, they have the reputation, oh, we were the hard class. No one could control us, right? We want to be able to empower students to feel there's nothing out of control here. There's no panic. We believe right now there's a positive kernel in you. We believe that you have the ability to overcome it. We believe you have the ability to get joy from it, as hard as it is for you. And we're also going to talk to you about it as often as we possibly and humanly can, in a gentle way, in a logical discussion way. The Frierdiker Rebbe writes in Kol HaChinuch V'Hadracha that educators are mistaken if they think that a good yelling is going to accomplish anything. And we all fall for this trap sometimes. Oh, give a speech. best TED talk ever. But in reality, the Friedrich Rebbe says that if we yell and scream and shame our students, any accomplishments that seem to be accomplishments short term are going to vanish like a fleeting dream. And again, this isn't about perfection as much as a mahalach. What's our approach? The approach that we need to have for our children, for our teens as they get older, and for ourselves is to work towards being intentional with our chinuch, teaching topics, educating about topics, rather than the lectures that they don't want and can't listen to. And it doesn't happen at the snap of a finger. It just doesn't. It takes time. And that field we spoke about before that yields crop, that gives the farmer satisfaction, that whole muscle really applies with chinuch. It's a seed, and we're gardening and we're planting. We need patience. We didn't get rid of our character defects in 1 minute. They won't either. And so we just need to keep believing they're going to find it in them. We could ask them questions. We could brainstorm with them. But the same way we ourselves won't, at the snap of a lecture, just be like, never thought of that before. I should be so responsible, so organized, so clean, never get mad, never, always dive in and dress appropriately and but we're work in progress. And so it's not the anger or the lecture as much as the preparing a topic, sharing stories, discussing and imparting values that's going to work. Which brings me to the next point. Very often, we find ourselves issuing about 1,600 commands a day. Put away the groceries, pick up your shoes. Did you brush your teeth? Remember to do your homework yet? Did you study yet? Watch out. No. Could you shut the fire? Could you remind me? Could you open the door? Did you look in the backyard? Did you look in the front yard? Whole day issuing commands. It's very hard to know which is important and which is not, and also be respectful, and also eat nicely, and also it's overwhelming. The Friedrich Rebbe explains we have to realize something. The ratzon of a person is very, very powerful, and it fights back. If we're constantly depriving this ratzon, we want to do this, we want to do that, and we're saying no a whole day, and we're micromanaging, it's going to backfire. The Friedrich Rebbe says, pick one thing. So if you feel like your child is struggling with anger and with something else, the Friedrich Rebbe says, pick the worst character defect. Almost like giving us permission to not notice everything. Not notice everything they're doing wrong. It's hard. It's hard to pretend you don't see something. It's hard to evaluate what's the most important thing to work on. But we have to understand that there's resistance to change. It's normal. This is something that Friedrich Rebbe teaches us. So rather than focus on everything, we could focus on one thing that we want to work on by bringing out the positive, by bringing out what the child or teen is currently already doing in that direction. And I see you're working on it, and I'm so inspired by that. But it's not going to be effective to try to hit it from all angles. And the same way we can't work on ourselves on 16 million different directions at once, so could the people around us not. So we could focus on healthy usage of technology. We could have intentional conversations about this. What's important to emphasize? And everything else could wait its turn. Almost like a theme in camp, right? With Ahavas Yisrael week. Everything's still important, but right now we're going to have Ahavas Yisrael hearts all over the place, and we're going to sing Ahavas Yisrael songs, and we might even have a secret admirer. So obviously I don't mean camp, but I mean in terms of our mindset. What could we let go? And what could we say, this is really, really important? And look at a positive way and a proactive rather than reactive way
Okay.
Here's the thing, and I think it's very important because we're really all in this together. I don't think any of us really have it all figured out. Not the teachers, not the parents, not the counselors. We're all growing. We're all learning. We're hearing from the teens. We hear their pain. We believe in them. But there's one thing that I believe very strongly. The teens could smell from a mile away whether we're working on ourselves at the same time or not. Are we just bossing them around and trying to create them into a product? Or do we reach deep inside ourselves and have real spiritual transformations? Or are we just doing things by rote because we were doing it in seminary or because our mothers told us to? And I find that actually, from all the things we said, this is the most impactful. When we speak, when we're growing, when Ruchnius is real in our life, not just in listening to classes, in change, in doing something that's hard for us. And when they see us, they could hear us speaking about davening a million times a day. Do they see us opening the siddur even though it's hard for us? Are we using tools? Are we applying chassidus in a real way of working on ourselves? I mean, chinuch is not just about learning a pasuk in Chumash and Navi. It's chinuch. It's growing. It's personality. It's emotional growth. It's ruchnius growth. Are we on that path, or are we just expecting from them? And so, really, raising our teens is not only circular with raising ourselves. Most of our focus probably has to be on growing, and that can trickle down. There's a beautiful sikha that I found brought out this point as well. The Rebbe discusses an ox that gores. And an ox that gores a child or acts destructive 3 times is known as a shar muad, right? Or a shar nagach, like it's an ox that gores. It made a habit out of goring. I'm just going to put a plug in for 1 second for Chidon Sefer Mitzvahs because I remember learning about this when I was in 6th grade studying for Chidon. So all those hours and all the mothers, if you have your little kid learning, somewhere it goes in the brain. So this ox, if it damages 3 times, it gets, we label it a shar muad. It's almost like addicted to its destructive behaviors. The question is there any way for the ox to undo its status? Is there a way that the ox could become not a shar muad? And the answer is there is. If the ox gets a new owner, the previous owner sells it to a new owner, it gets a clean slate. It has a new chance to be free of its negative behaviors. It's like suddenly there's a new ox because it has a new owner. And the Rebbe explains this is very much symbolic of the inner ox inside us. We all have an ox. So all we're worried about in the teenagers, we could also look in a mirror and make a cheshbon nefesh. How's our ox doing? Our nefesh lekis is totally all right. It wants to daven, it wants to learn, it wants to grow, it wants to connect, it wants to feel that everything that we're doing as mothers and as teachers is totally holy. Our nefesh bahamas could be ox-like. There are things that we struggle with. We struggle with anger, with gossip, with depression, with relationships, with so many things. We could be very selfish. How do we undo this ox status? How do we free ourselves from this addictive behavior, from this, from repeatedly being under our ox's control? By getting a new owner. When I make a conscious decision to say, Hashem, you're in charge of me. When I stop mid-anger, about to, do something or in the middle of a struggle that's really, really hard for me, and I say, Hashem, you're in charge. You're my owner. It gives our neshama the ability to be free from the challenge. Once, to break out of the cycle. But it's hard. This means we need to be doing daily upkeep, daily spiritual upkeep. And if we believe in it for the teenagers, We have to believe in it for ourselves. Like it says in Az Yashir, Zeh Keli Van Vehu. This is my God, I will glorify him. L'kei Avi Varamenu, the God of my father, and I will exalt him. And the way we explain it is that Zeh Keli, if it's my God, I will glorify him. If Hashem is mine, if I have a personal relationship with Hashem when I wake up in the morning and I continue to talk to him throughout the day, it's going to be mine. If I'm doing things on autopilot, if I'm running, an auto driving car, that the Keavi, it's the God of my father, the exalt, it's far. So I need to have the ability to have that real spiritual connection. I need to be using spiritual truths. And I also need to not be afraid to tell them the truth. People don't have to be ready. They might not be up to it. They might not be, they might feel it's too much for them. But the teenagers don't need compromise. Tell them the ideals. Tell them the highest ideals. Give it to them the way it really, really, really is. Share the process. Share your process. Share how you have a relationship with Hashem. There was a little girl, Sarah, that her mother noticed whenever somebody would ask her her name, she would say, I'm Mrs. Friedman's daughter. So Mrs. Friedman, Miriam, said to Sarah, Sarah, when someone asks you your name, don't say, I'm Mrs. Friedman's daughter. Say, my name is Sarah. You have such a beautiful name. It's one of the mice. Okay, Sarah says. The next day, the principal walks into Sarah's class and he sees her. And he says, oh, hey, aren't you Mrs. Friedman's daughter? So she says, I don't know. I thought I was, but my mommy says I'm not. Sarah is Mrs. Friedman's daughter. We are Hashem's daughters. And every single one of our teens are also Hashem's daughters. And the same way we have a personal connection to Hashem, we could believe that they can overcome their struggles. They have it in them. They have everything they need with all the temptations of 2021. Hashem doesn't make any mistakes. And like I heard from Rabbi Shais Tau, he says, God doesn't have any grandchildren, just children. We can trust and encourage and believe that our teens growing up today, with all the challenges, have everything inside them, all the tools from Torah and Chassidus, and they will find their connection to Hashem. Thank you.